Hello, hello, and welcome to episode 34 of the Great Canadian Hockey Podcast. The audio you're listening to might sound a little odd and echoey because I am in Port Alberni. Because if you're listening to this episode right now, we have recorded at two separate times in two separate, I guess four separate locations between the two of us. And now that I say the two of us, how is my co-host Aiden Sarah doing? How are we, fella?
Doing solid. This is Saturday the 7th as we're recording this. It's going to go out on Monday the 9th. So happy Thanksgiving. Today is the first of my two Thanksgiving dinners. We've got my family and then the Caitlin's family tomorrow. So a lot of turkey coming up and a lot of good food. So yeah, solid. Let's quickly chat and then man, I'm fired up for everybody to listen to the interview with Lucas because it was a ton of fun.
Yeah, and just looking ahead, we did interview our good friend and former classmate Lucas Celle. He is a color commentator with the Surrey Eagles, and not just that, but he does a lot for them on the media side. And even on top of that, he's just a great dude. And I know you guys will enjoy that one for sure. But just on the turkey dinner note, because I'm about to encounter the same thing. How much do you feel like the second turkey dinner loses its luster, not because of taste, but because of your ability to put it back after the first day?
It's not nothing, but it's not terrible because especially in this context, my grandmother makes excellent like stuffing and everything else, so I don't need to completely rely on the turkey tonight. So it's not like I'm gonna get turkeyed out, you know what I mean?
Oh, I know exactly what you mean. I just walked into my grandma's place and she made three desserts from scratch. So this one's gonna be a tough one.
So Trevor Zegras gets a deal. Jamie Drysdale gets a deal. Shane Pinto is now the only notable RFA left on the board. Zegras is the bigger fish, so let's start with Drysdale. Three three times 2.3 for Jamie Drysdale. I really like the kid. I hope he bounces back after some injury problems, and I think it's a good number for him.
I like it for both sides. For one, if Drysdale's injuries start to be a consistent thing, he's got security. He's got a really solid chunk of cash there to set him up big time if he doesn't really get another multi-billion-dollar contract. So I like that. I like it for the Ducks as well because you're banking on the potential that guy has and hoping he can unlock it and hoping he can stay healthy. And then on top of that, from what I've heard, he's just a pretty solid guy, and hopefully he can grow and mesh with the rest of that team as they look to take some steps going forward. They're still a long ways off, so these guys getting any level of development, Drysdale specifically, is it's huge. So I like the deal for both sides. Moving on.
Yeah, Anaheim also gets Lassie Thompson off waivers from Ottawa. We haven't talked about that. That's an interesting one. It's a very skilled right hand shot defenseman that just hasn't worked out with the Sens. There's been some chatter that maybe the Ottawa slash Thompson relationship had been trending towards the negative. So fresh start for Lassie. Maybe he can live up to the potential. He was a first round pick a couple years ago. Trevor Zegras until 2026 at $5.75 million. We talked about this already, and I think I gave him a $5 to $6 million range on a bridge. So I think it's good. Like I said before, that was kind of my mark for him, and player with a ton of skill that needs to refine his game. Hopefully for him, he can refine his game in the next couple seasons at this number, and then come out of this. He'll still be an RFA at the end of this deal, and that's when he'll really cash in, I think.
Maybe the leaked 3 to 4 was what he's actually getting after the tax situation. Maybe this is what he was going to get all along. Because I have to say those taxes in California are gnarly. Like the guys who get paid a lot in that state, they're not taking home a lot. But I do have to say, it was pretty much as Aiden and I said, between 5 and 6. I was hoping closer to 6. It got closer to 6. Um, the guy got paid. I mean, he's got productive seasons at a very young age under his belt, and I think he's earned every dollar he's getting paid. I don't think he has earned a significant amount more or a significant amount less. Give the guy what he's getting. We'll check back in a few years. That's pretty much all said and done on that one. I mean, if he puts up 70 this year, 75 next year, and 82 the year after, and the cap's gone up, we could be looking at a nice, really nice pay jump for him. We'll just have to see what happens.
So James and I obviously have to kind of go and start the Thanksgiving days, but I just want to touch on three brief things. So first of all, big surprise for me, Brant Clark fails to make the LA Kings opening day roster. The positive side of this is how good Jordan Spence has been, because Spence basically got that spot on that defense core. He's been really, really positive since he was drafted by the Kings. But Clark gets a year to season in the AHL, might not be a bad thing. Alex Turcotte, 2019 fifth overall pick, also going to play for the Ontario Reign with Alex Laferriere. But Clark is the surprise for me. What do you think, James?
Didn't we have a bet or almost have a bet on this one?
Yeah, I was banking on him ending up taking over the like power play one and the lead offensive role in LA from the end of the season or by the end of the season. And I don't think we bet on it specifically, but I definitely thought that he was going to grow into that, power play quarterback uh guy to go on at the end when you're down by a goal kind of guy, right? And I think he'll get there. Not this year, evidently, if he's going to go play for Ontario.
Yeah, a year of seasoning in the AHL, there's nothing wrong with that, especially for a defenseman. I encourage it. Go learn the pro game at a little bit of a slower pace, and yeah, see what can happen. They've got a couple other guys down there that he can grow along with. Maybe they can gel, and maybe that's something that could translate up to the NHL one day. But I'm not worried about him. I think he's going to be okay. Like it's and then to top that off, like just because he's starting the year down there doesn't mean he can't get called up. Injuries, underperformances on the Kings roster, you could see a lot of things happen. So let's not rule him out for this year yet. But um, on the bet thing, I think what I was thinking of was we bet on Connor Bedard's production. Am I right in saying that?
Yeah, I think we had an over under, and I took the over. You took the under on a specific number, and I think it was just a $20 bet. So I will have to look back in the archives to see exactly if any listeners happen to remember what the number was. Send it in. But I know
Do we have enough listeners to rely on them for
no,
numbers and
no,
history?
no, no. This will have to be you and I trying to figure this out. Mm, So last two things. First of all, per Pierre LeBrun, expansion is a when, not if, in the NHL. We kind of saw this coming because of the rising expansion fees. It's a huge cash infusion for the NHL anytime there's an expansion team. And that's just at the beginning. Obviously, the Seattle Kraken and the Vegas Golden Knights are among the higher earners in the NHL. And with the revenue sharing, that's not a bad thing. Four cities in, quote, strong conversations: Quebec City, Atlanta, Salt Lake City, and Houston. Atlanta would be an interesting spot to have a third NHL team. And obviously, I'm a huge Quebec City advocate, but Salt Lake City and Houston are also big markets. The Salt Lake Cities have the Utah Jazz there, and their owner has very, very, very strong, strong interest in it from the sounds of it.
I like him. He's cool.
Yeah, he seems sweet. Lastly, and I was a huge fan of this guy before the draft. I absolutely ripped the fact that 12 NHL teams let him drop to 13th overall. Zach Benson looks like an absolute stud in preseason so far. He is a relentless forechecker. I love his motor off the puck. I said that going into the draft. This guy never stops working. I love it. I love it. I love it. I was making my short list. It's in my little red book here beside me of my World Junior Canada roster, and he was headlining it, but he might actually make the Buffalo Sabres here. So that might be in jeopardy for Canada at the World Juniors, which is a bummer. But for Benson, that would be unreal. 13th overall pick, making it right out of his draft year. You really don't see guys aside from maybe the top five making it that early usually. So great for Benson. And I will again reiterate that the picks in that kind of 7 to 12 range are going to look really bad because of who went 13th.
The one thing I wonder with Benson and the Sabres for this season, say he makes the team, what is his role?
Yeah, and that's kind of where his style of play lends itself very nicely because of how good he is off the puck and how good he is defensively as a winger. He's an excellent two-way forward. He can play anywhere in the lineup, right? Like usually when you have young, high skill guys, you kind of have to take a step back and say, okay, well, if there's not a spot in the top 6 for him or even in the top 9, then it's probably not worth him making the team. Zach Benson can play literally any role you throw at him. So I think that would help his case with the Buffalo Sabres. He can be a fourth line left winger with a ton of skill that brings energy, that kills penalties, and that you can rely on when you need to. Or he can play on the first line with Tage Thompson and Dylan Cousins, right? Like it's anywhere. So I think that's where him making the team becomes more likely to me, right?
Yeah. I think like I do really like that about him. That is awesome. It's incredible qualities. It's a coach's dream. I just think I don't want him playing on the fourth line. I don't, just because I want him continuing to get more touches on the puck all the time.
No, I don't disagree. And then of course for the World Junior aspect of it and the fact that I can go watch him whenever I want in the Winnipeg Ice when they're in Red Deer. It'd be nice to see him go back to junior. Be nice to see Canada get that stud at the World Juniors. But if he makes the team, man, he's earned that spot. And I think we're gonna see a potential like leading Calder candidate in 2024 if he ends up going back to junior this year.
Mm,
2025.
yeah, totally. That's a fun one to watch. I like that one.
Okay. So Lucas Celle's coming up. You'll hear a little inner segment music, and then James will hop back on, and we're gonna go back in time to last weekend when we recorded this. And yeah, so thanks for listening to our little blurb here, and we will turn it over to ourselves and Lucas.
I've got my co-host here, Aiden Sarah. How are we doing, fella?
We're good because if you're listening to this as it's coming out, that means I am in Maple Ridge, and that's where I always want to be. So we're gonna say phenomenal.
Okay, in that sense, I'm in Port Alberni, BC, next to a lake, maybe sitting in a hot tub, maybe having a nice cocktail. I've probably got a belly full of turkey dinner. I've probably saved pumpkin pie for breakfast in the morning because I want to use all my room on the good savory stuff. And yeah, sweets for breakfast. Let's go. Yeah, and then here we have our special guest, our good friend and former classmate Lucas Celle. You were the color commentator and a big member of the Surrey Eagles organization. How are we doing, buddy? It's great to hear your voice.
Fellas, I've been waiting for this for so long, long overdue. Great to see your beautiful faces and hear your beautiful voices. I'm pumped to be on your podcast. Love what you guys are doing. And like I said, long overdue. I know, James, you've been working hard, and I'm really happy for you when I found out you got the job you have now. So good on you for that. And Aiden, I mean, not much I could say about you because you're the one who's really helped me almost the most to get to where I am now, and I can't thank you enough for that. I know you and Xander at the Black Bolts Bulldogs have been killing it, and I'm really not surprised at what you guys have been doing with the media over there. So really thrilled to be here on the pod with you boys.
So just before we get in here, this is our second BCIT classmate that's on here, and Lucas, I hope your feelings weren't hurt that you weren't first. Ben was timely. Ben was very timely.
That's okay. He's always on the ball, that kid.
He continues to be. We gotta love that guy. But yeah,
He's
Aiden,
doing
you
great
want
stuff over
to
at 650 as well. He's even had some on-air experience with Sportsnet now. He was made for that, so proud of him.
totally right down the hall from me. I never see him though. We're direct opposite schedules.
Uh,
But yeah, Aiden, you want to take us away here? Let's see where we're
Sure, yeah,
going.
let's go. So, I mean, we'll get into the BCHL stuff, I'm sure. But Lucas, you kind of said, and you said that I helped you a lot. That's touching, and I'm very happy to be such a positive influence on you. However, take nothing away from the fact that you are where you are because you're really, really good at what you do, right? Like, like I given you a couple
Oh, thanks, buddy.
recommendations, but it's been all you from there. And yeah, every time I turn on, you and Joey kill it. And I'll ask about Joey later on too, and the rest of the Eagles and what your job is there. But yeah, why don't you start with just kind of, obviously James and I have a pretty good idea, but we met at BCIT. How did you get there? And then how'd you get from school to where you are now?
So I went to BCIT because I didn't really know where I wanted to go else. I mean, I came out of high school, I'm not quite sure what I wanted to do, and I took a year off, which I think is an underrated thing for people to do, is taking a year off after finishing high school and trying to figure out where you want to go next. It's never wrong to take your time. I mean, some people are different. Some people like to go right into the fire, like yourself, Aiden, straight out of high school and right into college. But that wasn't really for me because I didn't know exactly where I wanted to go. I always knew, though, from when I was younger, that sports broadcasting was something that I loved to listen to, watch, and would love to be a part of. So I took that year off of school and I wasn't sure where I wanted to go. And I figured if I'm going to try to go into something, why not pursue something that I know I will like and see if it works out from there? And I knew about the BCIT broadcast and journalism program. I knew it was only 2 years, which I liked because I know a lot of people that go to school for 4 years, 5 years, six, and that was a bit too long term of thinking for myself. 2 years, I thought was kind of a good time to really delve into things. And yeah, the BCIT program, I was aware of it, and I thought, why not shoot your shot? Got into it, and you know, never would change a thing about that. I think there was times through those 2 years where it was tough, late nights trying to figure out how to work Adobe Premiere Pro. Uh, I'll tell you that much. And but I wouldn't change it for the world. Though those 2 years really helped me just sort of get an understanding of what it's like to be in a newsroom because it wasn't necessarily, taking classes and being in a lecture hall all the time with the exception of maybe one or two classes. It was mostly operating like a work environment. So I felt that it really did, you know, help me understand the environment of being in a newsroom and working in journalism and broadcasting. But the sports route was always where I wanted to go, and was just fortunate enough to meet some amazing people in that program like you guys, and we've all kind of been able to find our ways. It's really cool to see, where some of our classmates are now and crossing paths with some of them. I mean, I work at AM 730, the traffic station, a lot of former BCIT students there, and some from our class that worked there on air talking about traffic. And then even at the CKW news station, I now do tech producing there. I've been training for that for the past month, operating their talk shows. And we've got global news anchors that do newscasts at the top of the bottom of the hour. And I'm hearing voices from classmates, and it's really cool to sort of see how each person's path has progressed rather uniquely. So the BCIT program was just something I always thought, if I'm going to go to school, I might as well go to school for something I think I'd like. And if it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. Right now, still trying to find my way, but things have been going good so far.
Yeah, I mean, we love to hear it. We love to hear some success stories out of there, and we're keeping that BCIT statistic going, where most of us get employed in some way, shape, or form. So yeah, let's keep those numbers up. We like that.
Yeah, we wouldn't want to be the ones dragging that, the ones dragging that success rate down. um,
No, those percent, they said, 90 something percent of people get a job out of PCIT, the program. I don't know if that percentage was entirely correct, but I'm just glad I'm on the positive side of that percentage.
so from here, Lucas, we've kind of touched on it. So right out of school, you're splitting working at the traffic station with working for the team. When you started with the Eagles, it was just volunteer. You are the color guy, but this year you've taken on a new role. So tell me about starting and getting your, the toe in the water on air, doing color commentary, and then from there, the job you have now.
Yeah, so I entered with the Eagles starting in the 2020-2021 season in the BC Hockey League. That was right around when the pandemic was really affecting all uh, aspects of life. And so the BCHL had to pivot and do a pod season where it was, contained uh, environments, 3, 4 teams in groups where they would just play in one rink with nobody around. And that's when I started kind of doing camera switching with the broadcast production and working with your good friend Xander, who I know very well as well, working with you at the Bulldogs there, Aiden. But yeah, he kind of got me training, doing some social media, learning the basics of graphics. And that was my first season during the pod when everything was contained. The next year started to expand, still had limited seating in arenas, but every team in the BCHL was allowed to play at home again with travel restrictions. And then that was the year I started doing color commentary alongside Cole Martin, who was the former broadcaster for the Surrey Eagles, now works in marketing and sales for the Chilliwack Chiefs. And that was when, yeah, like you said, dipping my toe in the water. I've always grown up with a hockey mind and a sports mind, so talking about it never really scared me. But you don't realize how hard it is until you actually do it. In my first ever color commentator game, I remember it like it was yesterday. I went and filled in and joined you, Aiden, out at the Aldergrove Kodiaks and Abbotsford Pilots game. And that was a rough one. I remember leaving that and thinking, oh man, this is a lot harder than I thought. It's one thing to know a lot about a sport, it's another thing to talk about it and be able to talk about it precisely while a game is going on and be able to sound engaging to a listener. And I realized this is a lot more than I would have thought, but kept working through it. Worked for the Eagles that year as a color commentator, still just interning, no pay or anything like that. The year after that, leveled up a bit more, was still doing color commentary, but now was getting paid for it, which is always a bonus. And that was last season. Really, I felt that was my year as a commentator where I progressed a lot in terms of not just understanding the game, but being able to kind of provide that entertainment and sound a lot cleaner on the mic. So along with my broadcast partner, who's an absolute pro, by the way, you should get him on the pod one time, Joey Pitt. Amazing guy. And him and I just clicked right away. And I think that's a big reason why it worked out so well. The Eagles had a great run to the second round last year, falling in game 7. It was a tough loss, but it was a phenomenal season. And then this summer, I expressed interest in wanting to come back, but I also wanted to sort of expand my role. And with, sort of changing, some people going other routes, it opened up where they wanted me to come in and step in. And so I am now officially like the broadcast and media coordinator of the Surrey Eagles. So there's no director of media, there's no full-time position in the media team, but I get paid per game. And my job is to sort of coordinate the broadcast and media staff while also still doing the color commentary as an addition, because ultimately that's what I love to do the most. But this sort of other aspect of behind the scenes, working on game day, prepping up the game, making sure that our camera operators are intact and we have the right equipment set up. It's not an easy process, and it's definitely still learning, but it's been exciting being in sort of a bigger role and being able to put that on a resume towards future opportunities. It's more so like, I know it's going to be tough and there's going to be a lot of things I'm figuring out on the fly, but if I can just get through a season saying I've done this, then hopefully that progresses me to other opportunities, because I know I want to work in hockey. So yeah, broadcast media coordinator for the Surrey Eagles. It's been fun so far. Season's just kicking off and still got a long road to go.
I hope you saw that Instagram comment. I'm coming back for a game, whether
I
you
know,
like it or
I know.
not.
And
I'm doing it.
I keep talking about Aiden so much. I mean to mention, James, you were a part of that Eagles staff last year as well as our rinkside analyst, Ray Ferraro impersonator. And yeah, you were great for that first half of the season before you ended up working where you are now. So uh, yeah, we'll definitely have you back for a game, buddy. Would love to have you back. You know what it's like at the ins and outs of the Eagles rink, and you know what? It's been a lot of fun because there has been a significant improvement in turnouts. Fans are coming a lot more. They're vocal and they're passionate for junior hockey. It's easy to get muddled in with, the Canucks and the Giants around Vancouver, but there's a lot of other teams you can support more locally, and the turnout's been a lot greater. You can see, I mean, James knows the crowd there can be pretty fun, and it's really good hockey to watch. So excited to be a part of it.
I'm still sad Jacob Bonkowski got traded. That guy was awesome.
Oh, don't get me started. And so that's an interesting thing because he was committed to the University of Nebraska Omaha Jacob Bonkowski was our leading goal scorer last season. Exciting player. We called him, Joey started calling him Mr. Friday Night because it seemed like every Friday home game he was potting a goal or two. And he was one of the best players on the team. And he was supposed to go to the University of Nebraska Omaha this year. He went out there and they said, look, we want to give it another year before you bring him to the roster. And with the restrictions sort of in the BCHL, once a player goes to college and he comes back, the team that he played for in the BCHL no longer has his rights. So we had no choice but to trade him, and now he's doing great stuff in Salmon Arm.
Yeah, Nebraska Omaha is kind of it's a funny school, man. They love to commit kids early, but then they don't take them for a long time. People are generally committed to Nebraska Omaha for like 5-6 years because they love to commit their 13, 14-year-old kids. Look like they have a lot of promise, right? So quick NCAA tidbit aside, Lucas, I just want to go back to something before we forget. Number one, completely unrelated, we have the same title, which is funny that I didn't realize that until right now. But number two,
Really?
yeah,
I'd have to say your version of the role is definitely a lot more expansive and hands-on than mine is, but hey, I guess we're on the same playing field.
same level too. Um, I was gonna say though, like you talked about you and I doing that game in Alder Grove. First of all, in Lucas's defense, I'm pretty sure nobody on the ice had name bars because it was like game one of the season. That
No,
makes
they didn't. And our booth was not the greatest view, if I remember correctly, either.
No, the Alder Grove rink has way too many like beams in the windows of the broadcast booth. So me and Lucas kind of had to shift back and forth to try and see anything that was going on. But the question I was going to ask, and it kind of comes back around to you and I doing it together. James and I had even done a game together while we were at BCIT, but doing any sort of on-air broadcasting for games, it's a ton of fun. But it's even more fun when you have somebody beside you that A, you click with, and B, is really good at what they do. And it seems like you got a rock star beside you. So talk to me a little bit about Joey and your relationship and how you guys click on air.
Well, Joey Pitt, I mean, I can't say enough about the guy. From the first moment we met, we kind of just clicked right away because it wasn't even the fact that we both loved hockey, which he has a more expansive hockey knowledge than I do, which, you know, isn't saying much, but it is true. But it wasn't even about hockey that we clicked. It was, we started making old wrestling WWE references to each other, and we just had a lot of the same common interests. And I think that helped form our bond right off the bat before we even had called a game together. And it's sort of a thing that maybe some people don't notice if they're listening to an NHL broadcast and they maybe don't know, or they don't really like maybe how the broadcasters are talking, or what their sort of presence is like. But it really is bouncing off of each other a lot. And I think as a color commentator myself, I'm not the one calling the play. I'm not calling every second. My job is to jump in between the whistles, provide context, provide info on players, just sort of talk about the overall strategy or how the game's going. And that timing can be difficult to map out at first with your play-by-play broadcaster, but the thing is, we sort of clicked on that right away too, so it just further helped. Joey Pitt I mean, he's going to be working in Major Junior very soon. I was surprised that he didn't even get an opportunity this season, but very soon, a lot more people will know his name, and I feel fortunate to be alongside him right now as we both sort of start our careers. But yeah, no, he's great. I mean, the best thing he did for the community last year was his Wigs for Kids fund, which was in partnership with the Surrey Eagles, raising a fundraiser for the Wigs for Kids Foundation, which is a foundation that provides wigs for kids or adults who are going through cancer treatment, chemotherapy, and lose their hair. So he grew his entire mullet, which you don't see that often these days, but he had a mane on him, and he grew it all season long. And towards the end of the year, we had a giant fundraiser. It went up to our goal, which was $15,000. So fantastic. The fans got involved, community got involved, the city of Surrey got involved, and that just shows the sort of impact that he's had so far. And excited to see what he can do this year with the Eagles. But yeah, we had a whole ceremony. He came down to the middle of the ice. We got the chair out, got the clippers out, and a barber cut his hair right there in the middle of center ice during the second intermission. And it was one of the finest moments, but it just sort of epitomizes what Joey is like as a guy. So can't say enough great things about him. Really fortunate to be working alongside him, and just the overall partnership of a play-by-play broadcaster and a color commentator is so important when you're just to the overall experience of a game. So really fortunate to have that.
To say two things about my own personal experiences with Joey. First of all, just an awesome dude. Like a guy you want to like, again, I said this on Aiden and I's last podcast that we just recorded about, I can't even remember what or who, but a guy you just want to sit at the table with and crack jokes and just talk. He's just an awesome
We do
guy.
that on the broadcast together. Like we just do.
Exactly.
We try
And
to see
then
how many references we can slide in that maybe only him and I would know, but it just makes it fun.
yeah, and then the other thing too is I had one game of play-by-play experience, or sorry, color commentating experience, doing one with Aiden on play-by-play, and that was all the experience I had. And Lucas, you were away, so I was hired as ringside reporter, ringside analyst. But I did color with Joey for their Elite ID tournaments. It was kind of like a training camp, like kind of a preseason tournament that they did, and so I did like 4 games over the span of 2 days with Joey, and maybe even more. It might have been slightly more. It might have been 5. And just the jokes we were cracking, and we were like, we are keeping it so light that this is towing the line in between having fun and being professional. And that's exactly the sweet spot that I like to listen to. If that's exactly what I want to hear.
And that's exactly what a lot of people want to hear as well. As long as you're able to stay on track with the game and still provide helpful information to a listener who maybe isn't familiar with the sport of hockey as much, then you're doing it right if you can have some fun in there as well. I mean, most of our listeners at the BCHL that watch our streams and listen to us online are either really diehard fans or families and parents of the players. So you want to make it fun for them. It's not a wide scope of audience like you see in larger leagues, obviously. So with that, it does give us a bit of leeway to sort of try and experiment a bit, or maybe joke around a bit more, have a little bit of fun. As long as we're being professional about it, it does give you the opportunity to sort of venture out and experiment. So, like with limited listenership in that way, you are able to sort of express yourself a bit more without the repercussions.
My color guy, Mike, has been out of town twice, one preseason game, one regular season game. And both times I've had the same injured player do color with me. And it's so much more of that than we really should be doing. Because him and I know each other pretty well. He's been there since the start of last season. So we've had all year together. And man, I think last game 3 or 4 times one of us would say something and then we'd make eye contact and I had to shut off my mic because I just laughed out loud. Um, but it's always more fun to do the broadcast when you have somebody to bounce off of. And it's the chemistry thing too. You can always tell when you're listening to a broadcast if those two people really know each other and really know where each other are going with their thoughts. And yeah, like Lucas, James, but working with both of you was a ton of fun. And Lucas, I'm happy for you because everything that I've heard about and from Joey is exactly like you said, somebody who is already so capable and just phenomenal at what he does. So we're gonna go to the BCHL leaving Hockey Canada, Lucas, and I want you to tell us as much about it as you can, but I want to make a quick stop before we go there. So for me, I was sitting in Mission, BC. There's a diner called Rocco's, and it's known because the show Riverdale, like the diner in Riverdale, is modeled off it. So about it had to be this time last year. I was back to watch the Roger Waters concert with my best friend, and one of the other nights I was home, I was at Rocco's, and it was the first time that Lucas had called me in a while. And I'm looking at my phone sitting at this booth. And I was like, Lucas Celle. And I was kind of like, oh, this must be something important. And I go outside. I was like, hey, what's going on? And Lucas, that was your first game doing play by play. And I knew it was because we had been talking about it and you'd been asking for tips beforehand. So I want you to tell me how that game ended. I know, but I want you to tell the story.
Yeah, well, I feel like
What did you tell me to say?
I feel like I don't know if I was born with a horseshoe up my butt or what, but I mean, I felt like the luckiest guy in the world. It was just a preseason game last season, September 16th. First and only time I've ever done play-by-play. Never done it since. But had to step in for Joey because he was doing PA at the Young Stars Canucks tournament in Penticton. So fill in, obviously very nervous. I did talk to you a lot beforehand about tips and just sort of prepping myself for what I was about to do. And the part that everyone forgets is that the first 85% of that game, I was terrible. I did not realize how hard it would be to track which player is which in a split second. Not to mention, this is preseason, right? So you got no name bars. Most of these guys you haven't heard of yet. It's not like you're middle through the season and you've played the Langley Ripperman 15 times by now. This was the first time they met that season. A lot of guys that just filled in, for a game or two, getting their tryouts out. So that was, there was parts of that where I was really struggling to follow the play. But the part that I remember most and that I will always remember is the end of the game. 2 minutes left. Eagles are up 3-2. And the puck goes down to the Eagles zone. And our goaltender at the time, Michael Sochan, who was kind of the 1B to Eli Pulver's 1A, he steps out behind the crease, picks up the puck, and he turns towards the empty net goal. It was an empty net. Riverman had just pulled their goalie.
It's back in Langley's zone. Riverman have pulled their goalie. So the Eagles got an empty net opportunity. Michael Sochan plays the puck. He's going to fire it down the middle. Michael Sochan right along the line. Oh my goodness, he scores! Wow. Unbelievable, Michael Sochan! Are you
Fires
kidding
it down
me?
the middle, bullseye into the net, goalie goal. And I couldn't believe what I was seeing. And, I have had compliments about that call, and I am proud of it. But I'd be lying if I said that I was trying to structure any of that call. That was purely just shock in the moment. And the first thing that came to my head was what came out of my mouth. And it was just such a surreal feeling watching that and having that happen and witnessing it, because I had never seen a goalie goal up to that point. The Surrey Eagles, as far back as we can dig into their archive, have never had a goalie goal either. So this was a memorable moment. Michael Sochan, great kid that I got to know over the year as well. Couldn't have happened to a better guy. And it was just an amazing, amazing thing. And then here I am hearing my call on Bar Down and hearing it on the BCHL website and their Instagram pages. And I'm like, oh, that's my voice. And I'm like, thank God they aren't listening back to the first 2.5 periods of this game to hear how bad I was up until that moment. But yeah, that's a moment that will stick with me forever. And it was great. Just caught up with Michael Sochan again last week to do a 1 year later interview about that goal and just sort of look back on it together. That's posted on the Surrey Eagles social media pages, so you can check it out if you want. Great talking to the guy. He's now in university, but yeah, legendary moment. And I talked to both you and Xander after the game, like, you're not going to believe what just happened. And then you guys saw the goal as well. So yeah, very fortunate to have been on the call for that one. I know Joey was absolutely irate that happened to be the game that he was away for, because he's a goalie nerd himself. He's played goalie all his life. So the fact that the one game he wasn't there for was the game that I got to call that goalie goal was just a hilarious serendipity moment. So yeah, that was a great, only play-by-play game I've ever had, and probably, at least for the immediate future, will be the only play-by-play game I ever do. So pretty crazy to watch that happen.
At least you did him proud on the call. That's the
I mean, like, I've had people say it was a good call, and I appreciate the compliments on that, but I'd be lying if I said I was trying to make it a good call. It was just, yeah, pure elation in the moment. So I'm glad that it turned out okay and it sounded okay.
I've got one note on Michael Sochan. I was filling in for you for a game doing color, Lucas, and I found out after I said this that Sochan's mom was a frequent listener. She listened to all the games she could.
She still listens to our games now. That's how much she loves Joey, and that's how much she's dedicated to watching the Eagles broadcast.
Well, I think we added to how much she loves Joey because he made a save, and I said, Joey, what a glovely save that was, because he just snatched it out of the air. Worst pun ever. But she immediately responded in the chat, or like in some way. She reached out, and that became a reference throughout the rest of that game, and I will not forget that one at all in my short career of sports broadcasting. That's a highlight for me.
But yeah, it just goes to show, like, I mean, like, what BCIT taught me more almost than anything, which we'll probably dig into later as well, is that just say yes to every opportunity you have, because there was a long time leading up to calling that game where I thought, I don't really want to do this. We'll just get someone else to sub in. We had other people that could have done play by play that day for one game, but I ended up doing it, and it ended up being a great decision because that's a moment I'll remember, and never would have had that chance to call that if I didn't just say yes and try it out. Because at the end of the day, it is junior hockey, and as much as we're training to sort of try to be professional and move up in the ranks, junior hockey isn't the be all end all. So if you make a mistake, it really isn't the end of the world. All 200 of your listeners aren't going to freak out at you. So yeah, I just went in, just did it, called the game terribly, but the ending was a moment I'll always remember.
Okay, so we'll move on to the main event here. James and I think we've said something about this on the podcast. We haven't got into it too much. I always kind of felt like as much as I was familiar enough with it, I wasn't familiar enough to really like explain this, Lucas. So I kind of hope you and I can at the very least team up. I'm going to let you take the lead on it. So the BCHL, while we were in our, I want to say end of our first year at BCIT, they left the CJHL, which is the league that encompasses all the junior A leagues in Canada. And then over this last summer, they left Hockey Canada. So a lot of reasons why, a lot of repercussions with it. Let's start with why did they do that? And what were the positive benefits that are going to come of it or have come of it?
Yeah, so I'll start this off and preface it by saying that I don't know everything. A lot of people who work in the league are sort of in the same boat where we're sort of learning as we go along how this will impact the BCHL long term, because there are still question marks surrounding it. Um, and I'm not going to sit here and act like everything I'm saying is full on, facts. I'm not going to be able to dive into every aspect of it with full certainty, but essentially BCHL moved out of Hockey Canada this past year. This has been something that they have been discussing and working towards for the past 5 years, is what the league said. So it is a big deal. And in terms of the positives, the aim for this was to be able to, I guess, sort of fine tune the route for junior players to go to NCAA and college hockey in particular, because the BCHL never really was a route for players to go if they wanted to go to major junior. If you want to go to the WHL, OHL, QMJHL, a lot of those guys get drafted when they're 15 years old, and they sort of work through their respective places that they're at, and then they jump immediately to developing under those teams. So there was never sort of, it wasn't very common where in BC players went from their major midget team to the BCHL to major junior. It was kind of like you played in your BCEHL or the CSSHL, whatever hockey program you were in, and you immediately sort of go up to the WHL. So the BCHL was never in that sort of plan for the most part. And I think the BCHL has always marketed themselves as a league for players to reach their scholarship aspirations and reach their opportunities in NCAA, which has been growing and growing in terms of, a career path in the last little while for sure, and it's just gone more and more steam. So I think they finally made the decision to leave Hockey Canada. The positives are that it's supposed to fine tune that route to college, because now if you come to play to a BCHL team and you come play in this league, you are going for a scholarship, and that was always kind of the motive for most players. But now it just further solidified that, because there is no option to go to major junior now, and there's no option to go back down to junior B or junior A and play in the PEJHL or the VIJHL, these sort of leagues in BC. So looking at it from a BC centric standpoint, because that's kind of where it's based off of, that was a huge thing for them. And the positives are it's more developed in this case for players to go directly to the NCAA. That's their goal. And a lot of it is, we're not going to see the immediate impacts of this necessarily. It's more looking 2, 3, 4, 5 years in time, how many of these guys get scholarships. And so they're really hoping to sort of have the BCHL as its independent league now. It's not considered any sort of junior hockey. It's its own independent league that is a direct funnel to NCAA and U Sports, because some players go to Canadian colleges. So that was kind of its main thing. A lot of positives as well in terms of the opportunity to recruit players. Now, this is sort of a double-edged sword, because on one hand, moving away from Hockey Canada means that the BCHL has no longer any official association with any junior B or junior A teams across Canada. So you can't just have a player directly called up to the BCHL from another junior league. And so that sort of limits the amount of players that you can have fill in. But what they've done instead is they've expanded BC Hockey League rosters to 25 players and 3 goalies full time. So all those players on that roster are there the entire time, and they can't go anywhere else. So you have a larger roster to work with, guys that can fill in injuries. You got 3 goalies at all times. That's supposed to limit that sort of difficulty, because it was very common before this year for BCHL teams to call up a guy from the PJHL or the VIJHL or the KIJHL, those leagues, call them up for a game and then send them back to their junior team, their junior B team. But you can't do that anymore. So the expanded rosters allow them to sort of alleviate that. But importing players was a heavy restricted thing under Hockey Canada. And I don't know the exact, restrictions on it, or like how many you were allowed, but I do know that now, with the BCHL being its own independent league, they can essentially recruit from anywhere. And so that really does expand your recruiting process. And that's, it's been implemented because they're now out of Hockey Canada. They're not as restricted in where they can get players from. So we've got guys from Sweden, from Norway, from Finland, from Kazakhstan, which I can dig into later when we talk about, interesting import players. But these guys wouldn't have had the opportunity to come here right away, because a lot of BCHL's recruiting was funneled through Canada and Canada itself. And while they still have requirements in place where you have to have, I think it's a minimum of 3 or 5 BC-born players, so you still have to have those local guys, but it is now more, because it's an independent league, they're trying to expand and bring players in from overseas, or guys that have maybe come from Europe, played in the United States for a year, and now come to the BCHL to really fine tune their game and get more ice time. Because a lot of these guys that come to the USHL in the States, especially if they're 16, 17 years old, they're not playing much. Whereas over here, they've sort of, the league has sort of marketed it in a way where they're saying you can come here and you will get the opportunities and the ice time to be able to go to college. So, in a nutshell, there's a lot more that goes into it that I don't really have the full on knowledge to say. I wish I did, but I don't have all the knowledge. We can probably get another guest on who works closer within the league for you guys to really break it down if you want, but it's just essentially for the BCHL to rebrand and directly be, okay, this is our league, and you come to us, you play here for a couple of years, you get a bit older, you get a bit stronger, you will have a successful path to the NCAA, which is becoming a more popular route.
Wow. Very, very thorough. Honestly, man. You said you might not have much, but that was pretty deep, and I really appreciate that breakdown, because I heard quite a few things that I wasn't familiar with yet in the brief little bit of reading that I did. So I appreciate that. But there's one thing I was pretty curious about. Can it be do you know, can a BCHL team still trade with say an out of province junior A team, like say a team in the AJ or the SJ?
I don't I don't want to say that you can.
Answer's no, James.
Okay, there you
For
go.
sure. Yeah.
There you go. See, I didn't know for sure, because I
Yeah.
was like, they did all those trades and sort of recruitments before the season, but that makes a lot of sense, because there haven't been any sort of announcements yet starting the year,
Yeah.
and it makes
So
sense.
there are AJHL players that are on BCHL rosters right now. and it would have just been straight up that player left the team and joined the BCHL roster. Like the AJHL team didn't receive anything in return for it. What we're starting to see a little bit now too is, here I'll give you just an example literally that happened to Blackfolds over the summer. So the Weyburn Red Wings had a player named Ty Mason. He's Western Michigan University commit from Weyburn. Blackfolds trades two pieces to Weyburn to get Ty Mason's CGHL rights. He wanted to go play for Salmon Arm Lucas. So he signed with the Salmon Arm Silverback. So the Blackfolds Bulldogs held his CGHL rights while he was signed to play for Salmon Arm. Now, Blackfolds traded his CGHL rights to the Brooks Bandits, and Brooks was a place he did want to go play. So he is now playing for Brooks. So Blackfolds had his rights at the same time as Salmon Arm. He was going to go to Salmon Arm, but then when Blackfolds traded his CGHL rights to Brooks, that he jumped ship from Salmon Arm to go play for Brooks. So that is what you're like. A lot of trades over the summer in the AJHL included the CGHL rights too. And it was kind of a wing and a prayer if that player would go. The Brooks Bandits acquired Carmelo Crandell. I don't know if you've seen him come through. He's an ASU commit, very good player, but they were able to get him for nothing. And it looked a little bit weird, but then he popped up in a BCHL roster. So it made sense that the Sherwood Park Crusaders knew he wasn't coming back to the AJHL. So that is actually something that I was going to go into more, Lucas, and just ask if you knew too much about. And that is, when you play in the BCHL, like we're past the September 30th deadline. Let's say hypothetically right now, the Surrey Eagles are going a 10-game losing streak and they're like, okay, we need to change something. And they go and they find a kid who was cut from a USHL team and they sign the kid from the USHL. What happens to that 26th kid that no longer has a spot in Surrey? Where does he?
The league, like from what they said in their press releases, they said that they've implemented policies that are supposed to reward teams for keeping their 25 player roster intact and not sort of adding someone from the outside, because now they don't have the restrictions from Hockey Canada. They wanted to sort of have that cemented themselves. But that being said, a player can be eligible to return to Hockey Canada sanctioned play the next season, is what they're saying. So like I guess I wish I could answer it better, but affiliates can still come from, minor high school leagues across North America, but I don't think that they can have a player just directly come from the USHL or the NAHL like that. It's not that easy now. I don't know that we haven't seen it happen yet from the Surrey Eagles side, so it'll be interesting. Players can't just get if a player gets dropped, that's the thing, because like with a limited roster, they can't go back to the CJHL, so they have to find opportunities in other leagues, particularly in the States, which they can find, but it's really sort of harped on that the BCHL teams, if they don't have to do that, then they should not. So it'll be interesting to see. I don't know for sure, but yeah, like their goal is to keep the rosters how they are, unless it's like a dire situation. It's a lot of sort of finding ways to either work around it or work with it, and I think a lot of the GMs in the league are still trying to figure that out.
Yeah, my understanding was one of the changes, and it was the first like concern that came to my mind when I heard about the change, is that you're going to have guys that are on the bubble of making the BCHL team and then lose out their spot. And then they have to go play in the States. NAHL, USHL, and NCDC are the three big tier 2 leagues in the States. So they would. And, if you're good enough to almost make a BCHL team, you're good enough to play for a NAHL team or an NCDC team. You are. That just quality of the league. So it's not that they can't go play, but if a kid no longer can stay in Canada, for instance, right? And that was kind of the first alarm bell that went off in my head when I kind of saw what was happening.
It does put these young kids in a tough spot, and that's why it'll be really interesting to see how in the immediate future this plays out, and whether this like, actually does further entice kids to stick with the BCHL because, you got a 16, 17-year-old kid here who's trying to get a scholarship and he's thinking, well, am I one and done in the BCHL? Like, he doesn't want to be left out hanging to dry. So it is interesting. I know that it's not something that most of the teams in the BCHL want to do is bring someone else in throughout the season, which means that they have to drop somebody. That's why it was so huge that each team structured their roster very thoroughly before the September 30th cutoff date, so that they weren't having these young kids forced to make a big decision and move to the States. So that's like sort of the negatives with the positives about this sort of decision. Long term, you like the great thing is with the BCHL is they have more freedom with marketing, branding, sponsorship, partnerships, all those sort of collaborations. They don't really have the restrictions of Hockey Canada on them anymore. But when it comes to the players themselves, it does put pressure on them because they don't want to feel like they're losing their spot and they're forced to move. But we're gonna see how it plays out this season. I'm really interested to see, you know, how the perception is amongst players with the league. As much as it looks promising, the immediate future there could be some question marks or just concerns about, the well-being of these kids in terms of making sure that they're solidified in their spot. I'm sorry. I wish I had a more like better in-depth answer for you, Aiden. Like you know more. Like you probably know more than I do in certain aspects of this the league change. My brain's been sort of scattered all over the place over the summer. I'm sort of rolling with what we've got, and I'm focusing on the media, like the media broadcast side of things, and the actual like details of each sort of thing. It's so, and it's also very like sort of uh, contained within the general managers and the league itself is how it's all going to work.
Yeah, well, and you kind of said it that at the end of the day, it's year one, right? So as much as you're saying you might not have some in-depth answers to these questions, there's a case to be made that nobody does, right? Like I'm posing a hypothetical to you, and when it's year one of a process, it's hard to answer a hypothetical because you have nothing to draw off of, right? That hypothetical hasn't happened yet. So um yeah, it's complicated, and I think there's a relationship between the BCHL and Hockey Canada that I think if it was a little bit more amicable, players would benefit, right? Like if there was at least a way that it's not it's not that long of a waiting period to return to a Hockey Canada league, for instance, right? Like, but it's year one, so all those things hopefully are going to get ironed out. I did want to ask as well. You touched on something that James and I have talked about in what feels like at least every other episode, and that's the tier two to NCAA route. You talked about how it's growing in prevalence. There were more tier I think there were more USHL players in last year's draft than WHL players. I'm not 1,000% sure of that, but um, I'm quite sure that's the case. Both of the top two prospects in this draft are tier two to NCAA. One of them is already playing in the NCAA in Macklin Celebrini at BU, where Cole Iserman is going to go join him next season, provided Celebrini doesn't make a pro jump early.
Which I found out about that earlier this week, and I thought that blew my mind. Like, are you kidding me? These two kids are going to be on the same team, probably on a same line, if not the same power play units. It's that that Boston University program has been terrifying for decades, and they might be reaching like their magnum opus if both those kids are on the team next year.
Yeah, it would just be the pro jump for Celebrini that would take that away, right? Like,
Yeah, but selfishly I'm hoping that that's not the case because I'd love to see them play together, but who knows?
yeah, no, absolutely. So the question I was going to pose to you, Lucas, and there is an element of bias in both of us, right? But if you're 15 years old and your name comes up on the Bantam draft in the WHL, are you committing to the WHL route, or would you want to go play in a tier two league to keep your NCAA eligibility open?
Well, the question is getting harder and harder to answer because of the way that the tier 2 to NCAA route has progressed. And, it wasn't that common 10, 15 years ago, but I'd say in the last 5 years at least, you've seen a massive sort of shift in that mentality. And like, if I'm like, I even thought about it before I even started working in the BCHL to further understand it. But like, if I'm a kid and I'm thinking I could, further my hockey career, play against some top talent, really develop my skills, but I could also maintain the route to get a degree, like, you know, and I think a lot of families support that too. If you got a kid that really is all in on this hockey career and wants to pursue it, but they still have the option to be able to go to school, go to college, get a degree, and have at least a plan B to fall back on in that way. I mean, to me, that would be bias inside. It kind of sounds like a no-brainer when you put it that way, especially with how uh, NCAA and American junior hockey roots have become more and more into the limelight. And so the BCHL is sort of attaching its already pretty credible reputation with bringing kids into NCAA. They're attaching that with the progressed popularity of it down in the States. And it's almost like the BCHL has basically separated themselves from Hockey Canada and are now part of the States. Like it's like the BC Hockey League, if it was the province, just declared independency from Canada and is now leaning towards USA college route. And I mean, I think it's great. Like I talk to a lot of these kids, and they're great. They got bright futures, bright minds. Why not be able to try to get both things done and get a scholarship while you're pursuing hockey? I think it's a great route, and it's only going to get more and more common and popular as the years go on. I feel like and I think that's why the BCHL felt like this was the time to finally pull the trigger and jump the boat and jump ship in that way.
Yeah, I think when you kind of said, "Oh, it's a no-brainer," when you put it into those terms, it's again, and as close as we are with the leagues that funnel these kids to the NCAA, and B, I know you and I both have some personal relationships with some of these players who have chosen that route, right? So both of that are you can make the case is swaying our judgment one way or the other. In my opinion, if you're a first round talent, I think major junior is the way to go. You get more eyes on you. You get more opportunity for
That's
development.
fair. Yeah.
But if you're not one of those studs, then it's a no-brainer for me, right? Like then it's
Mhm.
you go tier 2 NCAA, and you're talking about scholarships. The thing that kind of gets lost in all this a little bit is the fact that if you're in the WHL and let's even say you're 5'9" and you're just not physically good enough to excel at that level. Well, you age out of the WHL and you're done. If you're a smaller player in a junior A league, A, you're going to excel a little bit more. But B, when you go to the NCAA and you're 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, and you grow into your stature, or even if you have a growth spurt, we've seen way more NCAA free agents in their mid 20s that didn't get drafted out of junior A leagues and then just pop off. The Canucks have two right now on their roster, Cole McWard and Akira
I
Hiroshi,
was
both.
just gonna say, look at a guy like Cole McWard and Hirose, a former BCHL player himself with the Silverbacks.
Yeah, and so I understand the leading of the major junior if you're making the choice in that moment, okay, major junior to the NHL or tier 2 to NCAA. But that tier 2 to NCAA route could still very, very much have the NHL as an end to that. And I think there's even more opportunity, especially with how good the NCAA is getting, right? We saw Ryan McAllister get a contract with the Florida Panthers, undrafted out of the Brooks Bandits, the AJHL, and lights up Western Michigan University. And all of a sudden he's got an NHL deal, right? Like it's development is never linear. And so when you have these kids that hit their stride or it's a certain coach in their late teens that brings out the best in them. Well, if they're in the WHL and they have half a season left when that happens, you're best you're going to do is to go play U Sports. Nothing against U Sports, but a U
It's
Sports,
not the same. No.
it's a 1 in a million chance that you're playing in the NHL after playing U Sports, right?
Yeah.
Whereas NCAA, that chance hikes right up.
Yeah, no, I think the way you prefaced that was definitely important. Like, uh, major junior is still a major way to go. Like, it will still be the top dog in Canada. Like, every kid wants to go to major junior, and I don't think that's going to change necessarily. Like, in the general perception, you think of Memorial Cup, you think of the WHL, OHL, QMJHL. Like, that is still going to be the goal for a lot of these kids. But I think it is a good thing to consider if you're not one of those top guys like a Gavin McKenna or something like that, to have an alternate route that you can venture into, to have a fallback plan of getting a scholarship as well. And I don't even want to say it's a fallback necessarily, because you're getting education. Like, that's not like, a lot of these kids want to get their education for free. So, like, why, like, this helps you get there, even if you don't think you can pursue hockey past the NCAA level. At least you get your schooling paid for, you know. And in terms of a family aspect, like, if you're a parent, that is definitely something that you would want for the future of your kid. So yeah, the top guys throughout Canada, make no mistake about it, they're going to go to major junior and they're going to get the exposure that they need. But I just think the perception has shifted a bit over the years, where the tier 2 to NCAA route has become more and more common. And if you're not one of those top guys, like you said, it's a great path to consider.
Well, and I think it like, we have to also establish, we talked about biases. We have a very significant Western Canada bias here too, Lucas, because
Yeah.
AJHL and the BCHL in terms of quality of league is so far above the rest of Canada, specifically Ontario, Quebec. Like, there's a reason that Adam Fantilli, who's from Ontario, wanted to go NCAA route, ended up in the USHL and not in an Ontario Junior A league. Those leagues in Eastern Canada are not at the level of the Junior A leagues in Western Canada. So that also has to be said, that we're kind of talking about the BCHL and the AGHL going up against the WHL. Well, the OHL is so far above anything else in Ontario. It's not like the WHL is, where even the quality of hockey is getting closer. It's night and day in Ontario, right? And in Quebec even. So that also has to be established. But James, you want to pivot and go into some NHL stuff?
Let's do it. I'd love to. Yeah, so we've got a couple things to dial in here, and preface this. Lucas is a Canucks fan. I imagine he still is. I don't think it's changed.
I don't know if I'd call myself a fan anymore, because, like, if I want to pursue a career in this league, I have to sort of step out of that bias. But
Totally.
that being said, uh, grew up watching and loving the Canucks, so there's definitely still that fan in me. I just keep it a lot more suppressed, and have sort of shifted away from the fan mentality for the most part, as opposed to just being a hockey fan. But it's also easy to suppress your fandom for a team like the Canucks when the past 10 years have been nothing but heartbreak and depression. So
Totally. So we will, on that note, we'll start outside Vancouver and we'll work our way in. I mean, it's kind of it's a bit of I mean, it's a bit of a mess per se. There are a lot of guys, a lot of teams you could go with. Me and Aiden on our last episode discussed who we think for conference finals. Aiden, do you want to go with yours, and I'll give him mine, and then we'll get a couple picks from Lucas.
Sure. So in the West, I'm going Dallas, Edmonton. I think the Stars, I said this in the last podcast, I like some of their subtle little changes. That defense is only going to get better. I think Miro Heiskanen takes a huge step this year to build off the huge step he took last year. I have them against the Edmonton Oilers. It's cup or bust for the Oilers. I think they deliver. One of those two goalies is going to either figure it out, and if they don't, they're going to make a change at the deadline. In the East, the Toronto Maple Leafs, I've talked about them a lot on this podcast. I love their offseason moves. Huge Max Domi fan. Tyler Bertuzzi's a perfect complement for that top nine. I think the Tampa Bay Lightning, Boston Bruins, and Florida Panthers all regress at the same time that the Buffalo Sabres, Ottawa Senators, Detroit Red Wings, and Montreal Canadiens aren't ready to take a step yet. I think Buffalo takes a step into the playoffs, but I don't think Buffalo or Ottawa take that step to compete with Toronto. I think Toronto's the top dog in that Atlantic and they get out, and have them playing against the Carolina Hurricanes. Carolina have been right around there forever. I think this is finally the year they win a game in the Eastern Conference Final.
And I believe on my end, I went Colorado Edmonton. I mean, I'm trying not to be biased, but I love the Colorado forward court reshake. And I think that group just kind of continues to gel together. And the Oilers, they were right there. They just had to get past Vegas, and Vegas was just a team of destiny per se. Everything was going right. Their depth was just perfect. And I mean, not much has changed up, but it's just another year of those Oilers getting better. And I mean, when those two teams met in the conference finals 2 years ago, season before last, rather, I guess that's the same thing. But yeah, Colorado made for they made Edmonton's time in the conference finals fairly short-lived. I think it would be very different this time. I think it would be a long series, and who knows who would win. And then in terms of the East, I think I went Toronto, Carolina. I believe that's what I went. Aiden, can you confirm? Maybe.
I didn't write yours down, Chief.
I didn't write mine down either. I think I just spitballed, as I do often, improvising, right? Um, yeah. So Carolina is just that good. They're systematic. They creep up on you. They're relentless. Everything is doing the same thing. Their system is perfect. I mean, they've been in a lot of conference finals in the past several years. They've been a frequent visitor there, but they haven't managed to break through. And this could be the time they break through. They have much of the same core and much of the same group. They added Dmitry Orlov coming off the best he's ever really been, and they added Michael Bunting as well. And then you add a healthy Andrei Svechnikov. And then whichever one of their three goalies is in net, whether it's Freddie Anderson, Antti Ranta, or Pyotr Kochetkov, I'm not even really that worried about it. And yeah, I don't really see much of an issue there. And then with Toronto, if it's gonna happen, it feels like it's gonna be this year. I don't see it happening past this year. It just feels odd. I don't know, just a little bit off. There could be some shakeups over the next while. William Nylander on the verge of expiry. Who knows what happens there with his contract? Mitch Marner only has a year left after this year, and yeah, same with John Tavares, I believe. But yeah, it feels like there's change coming in Toronto. So if they're going to do it with this group, it's got to be now. So I feel like that galvanizes that team. And Boston's weaker, Tampa's maybe weaker. Florida was the flash in the pan, or are they this good? Who knows? And I don't think an Ottawa or Buffalo is going to get that good that fast. I think they still have some time. Who knows? They could be a Cinderella run, but yeah, it's I think those are the four squads. That's my call, but Dallas is a very scary team, so I could sub Colorado for them. What do you got for me, Lucas? Do you have any thoughts, hunches, any direction you want to go here?
Yeah, well, I didn't really do prep for this part, but if I'm spitballing and kind of just looking at it, not that original based off of what you guys are saying, but kind of what I just feeling and how I think it's going to go this year. I think the team coming out of the Pacific will be Edmonton. I've thought that all summer. I think the 6 game loss to the Knights last year really hurt them, but I think it's something that will make them stronger. You can't count on McDavid and Draisaitl. I really, really liked ever since they brought in Ekholm. I think a full season with Matthias Ekholm could be huge on that back end just for stability. Because Darnell Nurse can be a bit hit or miss. Evan Bouchard, I have him honestly, 50-point season. He's going to be near my fantasy rankings for sure. I think Evan Bouchard could have a big step. But I just think good teams, you look at the Washington Capitals, they had all the pieces for years, but they couldn't break through, get past the Penguins. And then what happened in 2018? They broke past the Penguins, and then they just rode that wave and went all the way to the Stanley Cup. Edmonton and Washington aren't direct parallels, but I just feel like Edmonton is too talented to count them out. And I think, despite still question marks around their forward depth, they've got the top heavy talent that's undeniable. And a year after losing to the Stanley Cup winners, I think that'll only be more fuel added to the fire for them. Coming out of the Central, I'd say probably Dallas as well. Like, Dallas surprised me. I didn't really think much of them going into last year. Kind of didn't care for them. Maybe that's just because we're up in northern Canada and they're so far south. but never really were on my radar or thought about them at all. But Jason Robertson is an absolute machine. I think, barring any sort of major injury, it's going to be hard to stop him. Like you said, Aiden, Heiskanen really got lost in the shuffle with how a lot of these young defensemen came in and tore up the league, but he is as solid as they come. And Ottinger, to me, is going to be in the Vezina conversation, no doubt. So I think that they have a really talented roster. East, um, like Toronto would be great, and I think Toronto definitely has the pieces. They've added that grit in the bottom six with guys like Reeves and Bertuzzi, and I think that's an essential part of a playoff team that the Leafs have lacked in recent years. So I like the thought of them. I also like the thought of Tampa just coming back. I don't know why. Like, no, I don't like the thought, but I just have a feeling in my gut that Tampa is never going to really go away until Stamkos and Kucherov retire. So I just feel like Tampa's always going to be in the conversation, and obviously Vasilevsky's out for the first few months, for the first 8 weeks, I believe. So that is a huge question mark. But once he comes back, they can, if they find their group at the right time. Tampa's a hard team to stop, and I really like the New Jersey Devils personally. I just think that they're one of the most exciting teams in the league to watch. Another team that you wouldn't have expected to do as well as they did, but you know, they for the past few years have you've had this feeling that the Devils were on the come up, and then all of a sudden they just skyrocketed and blew everyone's expectations last year out of the water. But now those expectations are staying. They're expected to be in the playoffs, and they're expected to go through a long run. You know, Hughes, another year of being an offensive dynamic forward. I think he's going to be extremely exciting to watch. Heischer as well. That 1-2 punch in center is like every team's dream to have, and I think they're very fortunate to have that. And yeah, I have a feeling the New Jersey Devils, they're fun to watch, and I'd like to see them do very well. Bratt's always a pretty reliable player, so their offense, I think, will carry them in that way, and they can make some waves in the playoffs. So we'll go Devils and Lightning, just because I don't know. As much as I don't want to say that, I feel like the Lightning could find a way, and then we'll go Edmonton, Dallas in the West. How do you feel about that?
No, good stuff. Tampa getting back there, man. I
just can't count them out. It's not original, but I just can't count them out, and I just feel like they took a step back last year, but
yeah. Well, and it's they're a team where the end of this core being dominant is near, and they know it. So I wouldn't be surprised if we see them go out at the trade deadline and really, really push for some good players, make those Julian Breezebot type savage trades to get, players that end up being gods in the playoffs for them. Didn't work out with Tanner Jeannot last year, but potentially again, another swing at it for
5 picks.
Yeah.
Every time I hear that name, I just think 5 picks.
That was a lot. So let's go specifically to Vancouver, and what's your hope here for how this season goes for the Canucks? Are you a they're not good enough, they're not going to make the playoffs person? Are you they're going to break out and win the Pacific person? Or are you where it seems like a lot of Canucks Nation is, which is in between and looking at one of those wild card spots?
Definitely in between. I'd be lying if I said that I expect them to be a playoff lock. But I'll also be lying if I said that I expect them to be at the bottom of the standings. I think they've made some nice additions on the defensive side of things, because as someone who's watched them over the years, that's always been a very big weakness and a glaring hole for them was their defensive ability. But I think, guys like Carson Soucy and Matt Irwin, these guys can really fill in the bottom half of the defensive core and possibly provide some stability that the Canucks desperately need. That being said, Jim Rutherford said it himself. If everything goes right, then we're in the playoffs. But how often does a team have everything go right through an 82-game NHL season? When the president of hockey operations is saying that, it's hard to sort of feel like that's a plausible sort of realistic scenario the entire way through. So I'd say like a bubble team would be where I'd like to see them if I'm dreaming up the scenario, I'd like to see them get to the playoffs and either win a round or have a really hard game 7, like 7-game battle in the first round to like just build up some of that sort of grit and that toughness that they would need. I mean, I don't even know if I would count the bubble season because that run was just so out of nowhere, and that whole season was so unique with how it played out that the Canucks going and then losing to the Knights. I think it was just sort of a flash in the pan, almost kind of like how the Canadians went to the finals. Like, I just don't know how much you can base your thoughts off of that. I think a good year for them would be getting to the playoffs, getting those playoff tickets sold, because that would be something they love, and getting through a round or having a really hard battle so that guys like Pedersen and Hughes and even these younger guys that are really stepping in, like Hirose and McWard, whoever ends up staying around, guys like Hoglander, Podkolzin, these guys that could have some depth roles and really experience that playoffs, I think that would do good for them in the next few years. But I'd say bubble team ideally, and just get that playoff experience in a normal playoff environment that could really, really help push guys like Pedersen and Hughes to the moon, because they'll have that anger behind them that isn't necessarily outside of the ice related. It's on the ice, and I think that type of focus. I mean, Pedersen has all the ability to have a 120-point season in the league, in my opinion. I just think I marvel every time I watch him play, and it's no pun intended here, or no reference to any old Canucks. It's the little things that he does as well that really surprises me, just his overall presence on the ice, and he's still getting so much better. So I think they'll be exciting to watch.
All right, well, taking it out of the NHL and going to a little bit of fun stuff, because we're not quite doing some great Canadian hockey podcast trivia or games, but we've got some questions from the listeners, and yeah, that's a little bit of fun thing we've been doing the last while, and keeps a little bit of engagement and keeps us on our toes as well, right? Like, it's sometimes it's stuff we are not prepared for whatsoever.
By
Yeah.
the way, if you submitted a question before you're listening to this and it hasn't been answered yet, it's going to get answered on the next one. I just want to say that because we're recording a little bit out of order. And then even the day that we recorded this, I put out an Instagram story asking for questions, and we're not even going to get to all of those. So if you've submitted it, it's coming. It'll come on the next one.
Sweet, sweet. Well, yeah, I mean, imagine we might have a little bit of a pile of them next time, which, that's all good fun. But all right, so one of our questions from one of our listeners, we've got, what would you currently change about the current NHL rule set to improve overall enjoyment and functionality of the sport, and why? Give me one change. Lucas, I'll start with you. What do you got for me?
Well, I'll give you one thing that I've just recently seen here in the BCHL, and I think it's just because it's at the forefront of my mind, is 10 minutes of 3-on-3. The BCHL started doing that this year, and I talked about it on our broadcast a few times. I think that this has its pros and cons because 10 minutes of 3-on-3 means, hey, more overtime action, more open ice, more chances for exciting plays and goals. I like that. At the same time, 10 minutes of 3-on-3, we've seen how 3-on-3 can get played with very passive structure, where you sit in your own zone for a minute and kill the clock, and it's all about possession. So with that being said, 10 minutes of that can sometimes be a bit cumbersome. If we saw it in one of our preseason games, it went to about 9 minutes and 30 seconds of overtime before someone scored. But leading up to that, there was a lot of passing back into your own zone, really slowing it down and keeping possession, because that's the most important thing of overtime. That being said, I still think 10 minutes of it is great in general. And I just, for the fans that are there live and for fans watching the game, I mean, I know for me personally, if I see any game going to overtime, I don't care who's playing, I'm going to watch if it's on, and I'm going to follow, because just that opportunity of exciting moments. So stretching it from 5 minutes to 10, I just think that'd be really cool.
Yeah, I'm on board with that. What do you got in your wheelhouse, Aiden?
Well, I was going to say to Lucas's, I think, and we don't need to elaborate much, my quick opinion on the 10-minute 3-on-3, I think one of two basketball rules has to actually be implemented as well. Number one, you either have a shot clock where you have to get a shot off in a certain amount of time or you lose possession.
Yeah. Okay.
Number two, it's a whistle and a face-off in your own zone if you cross center and then pivot back and go back into your own side of center, like a there and back rule. So it prevents retreating, and it's just attack and then you lose possession, then you have to defend, right? Instead of you circle into the offensive zone and then you end up behind your own net before you make another pass, right?
I think that'd be great. I think that would eliminate the concerns about it. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
that's my
great.
2 cents on that.
No, that's great.
James, you're not going to be surprised at what I'm going to say because I've said it a gajillion times. Soft cap, not so much for the enjoyment on the ice, but man, the blockbuster trades, right? Like there'd be so much more intrigue to player transactions and to free agency and to the trade deadline and even to the draft. Like, to me, there's so much more intrigue if there's a soft cap and we don't have to be every trade discussion doesn't have to be marred with, but what about the retention? But what about X? But what about Y? It's just your best player for my best player. You'll see those trades start to come back. And soft cap, I think soft cap's a good middle ground. You get a good luxury tax on there, and it's I don't think Gary Bettman will ever let it happen, but I think it's a fun thing to dream about. What about you, James?
Solid. That's a decent one as well. I like the tacticalness of of the salary cap, but I see the appeal both ways. For me, I had a couple in mind, but I think the thing I want most is, like, you look what happened to Shane Wright last year. He was too good for Major Junior and not good enough for the NHL. I want more exceptions on players, like players coming out of the junior being able to play in the AHL. I think being able to go learn the pro game is important. Or even I want them encouraged to go play in Europe, go play pro against men somewhere else. Something of that nature. I don't want it to be a complete free for all where they're encouraged to play in the AHL, because then you're going to take jobs away from journeymen. You're going to take interest away from major junior ranks in local communities. I don't want to be a free for all. I just want some kind of extra exception system, and I think that's probably going to be looked at in the next NHL CBA. So I mean, it's next collective bargaining agreement, that is. It could be something general managers look at manager meetings. But there is it's something that could be looked at, and I hope it's looked at. I don't want it to be a free for all, but just some wiggle room.
I like
that.
how you guys went for like really deep rule changes over the structure of how league rosters are formed, and I'm just over here like 10 minutes of 3-on-3. Let's do it.
I
Yours
like it, man.
one-
I like it.
Lucas, yours is the one that affects the on ice product the most. There's nothing wrong with that. Like, on a game by game basis, your change would be the most felt. And I'm not a huge shootout guy. I like it from time to time, but I'd be so on board for 10 minutes of 3-on-3.
No, you know where I like shootouts is in the gold medal of a World Juniors. That's the place to put a shootout. Thank God they got rid of that.
Oh,
Well, they didn't get rid of it, I guess. It's still there, right?
I thought you were serious.
Oh,
for
it's
a
play
sec.
till you score now, which is
No, okay, good. Yeah.
Well, next up, we have a kind of fun non-hockey related one, and I know I'm going to make mine somewhat hockey related anyway. What is your dream 7-day vacation? The one that comes to my mind recently is something some of my friends have discussed, and that is you go down to Florida for a week in like April, right? And then so you've got sunny, sandy beaches, you have great nightlife, you have sports, you can go see hockey in Florida or Tampa. I mean, it's ideal. And then there's concerts all the time. It's a destination place. I really would want to do that. Yes, I think about the adventurous options, but right now that's top of mind, and that's something I want to do. Aiden, I'm gonna go your way. What do you got?
I really, really revel in like learning and seeing different cultures and different ways countries are set up. So I'd get out of North America. I think what I think my answer is going to be, because my dad and I kind of talked about doing this recently, is like him and I are both huge soccer fans. I think what we should do, we'll make a list of 3 stadiums we want to watch a game in, and then spend a day in that city, watch a game, go to the next city, spend a day, watch a game the next day, and then go see Madrid, London, and Munich on a trip, and then watch 3 high-level soccer games. I think that would be the next thing I'd want to do, because I think doing that with my dad would be really cool as well.
Well, my choice is actually something I am already going to do. So this is like call it a dream vacation, but it's actually going to be a reality in a little bit over a month. So I've personally never been outside North America in my life, and about 5 months ago, my cousin and I officially booked a trip to Costa Rica. So we are going to Costa Rica at the end of October for 2 weeks. So not just one, but 7 days times two. But for 7 days would be my dream vacation. We're gonna just go check it out, and we're renting a car down there. We're going to 4 different areas in the northwestern part of Costa Rica. Uh, I'm gonna try surfing for the first time, which could go terribly wrong, but I'm gonna try it because it's very popular down there. The beaches are beautiful. It's one of the most biodiverse countries in the world, so a lot of unique species that I've never seen in my life. We're gonna do a couple safari tours, on a boat, and we're gonna do this one tour down a canal. My cousin really wants to go see crocodiles. I'm like, I could probably go without being near a crocodile. So we'll look. We're gonna go on a tour where we can see them from a distance, I guess. But it's by far the most adventurous thing I've ever done in my life, and I'm worried. Like not worried, but I'm nervous because I don't know how it's gonna play out entirely. But we've got everything booked in terms of accommodation, and we had a travel agent help us a lot with booking a rental vehicle, and we're gonna travel insurance and all that good stuff. We're not gonna do anything too outlandish. We're going to like 4 different spots, like 3 spots near the beaches, so it's a little bit more touristy anyway. A lot of North Americans go there, and we're kind of more familiar with like those sort of beachy, safer areas. And then we're going to one sort of area in Costa Rica inland where there's a giant volcano, and like there's some hiking and national park there we can check out. So that's what I'm doing next month. So I've just been grinding for the past 3 months, sort of prepping for the season, uh, with this sort of in mind, is like I'm working hard up until this point so that I can go away and sort of enjoy life a bit more carefree. And we got my team knows that, so we're gonna have everything in place with the broadcast and media stuff so that they can hold the fort down while I'm away, since I'm already booked this and it's a part-time job, so I'm not, you know, fully up. Like I don't have to be here for every single Eagles home game. So we're gonna make it work. But this is before I even got the job with Surrey, so had to take that into account. It's been booked for like 6 months. So really excited for that. Yeah, Costa Rica.
Awesome. Love to hear it, man. That's pretty sweet. I'm looking forward to seeing the photos. Yeah, definitely
Oh
get
yeah,
up
I'm gonna make sure the
personal with
Instagram is popping.
definitely get up close and personal with some like weird creatures. I want to see that.
There's a lot of monkeys. We've been hearing some stuff about monkeys, and you can't really have anything too loose because they'll jump down and grab whatever you're carrying. So I'm gonna have to have our head on a swivel for that. But it's
Yeah,
gonna be
man,
fun.
sounds good. I love that. All right, so we're gonna go to a quick, easy one, nice and easy. Lucas, who's your first ever favorite player in hockey?
Well, Daniel Sedin, I think. Just growing up, watching the Sedins play, 22 became my favorite number because of him. Uh, and like, it made me, looking back on it now, I realize how blessed we were growing up in Vancouver to watch those two play together, because I think they play a style that we'll probably never see in the league again. Two twins playing on the same team, drafted back to back in the same NHL draft, and playing their entire careers together. I think you'll never see anything like it. And the way that they were able to distribute the puck in the offensive zone, their unique ways of playing along the boards, cycling, was something that I had never seen. And like when I started playing hockey, I was a huge um like player when it came to cycling and dumping the puck around the boards and getting your teammate to pick it up. And I think that all stemmed from watching the Sedins growing up. So Daniel Sedin was my first favorite NHL player, just because he was the one who scored more goals. So I loved him. But I'd say like my first like player that I ever like really loved was Bertuzzi, but that's just because I was like 4 years old and I used to write all their names in chalk on my treehouse, and I just liked the name Bertuzzi the most. So he was always the one because this is a fun name. And so Bertuzzi was like the first player that I kind of like liked, but my first favorite player was definitely Daniel Sedin.
Great choices, and mildly expected. I'm gonna say it was lightly predictable, but I still
Yeah,
love it.
I know that's kind of cheating because I said two names, but it's different sort of context.
No, totally. I know what you mean. Aiden, gimme. Let's see what you got.
Well, I know on this podcast, James, like we've talked a lot about how it was through two big things that I fell in love with hockey. It wasn't even really the Canucks. It was World Juniors and then the 2010 Olympics. So again, I'm gonna cheat and have two answers. Jordan Eberle would be my first one because it was probably the 2009 World Juniors. That's the first thing I ever remember in hockey, and that was the tournament he scored that goal against Russia in the semifinals with 5 seconds to go. And then the other one I have to say is Pavel Demitra. I loved him when he was on the Canucks, and then he was an absolute stud in that 2010 Olympic tournament. He scored the shootout winner against Russia, which was so cool to see Slovakia beat them. And I really liked him when he was on the Canucks. I liked how there would be like once every few games where he'd just get the puck down the left wing and just wire a slap shot, just blow it past a goalie. And yeah, I one of those two guys for sure. I think I've said it on this podcast before that like my dream jersey, and I'm like a big jersey collector, and my dream jersey to get would be a 2010 Olympic Slovakia Dimitra one. Like I think that'd be the coolest thing.
Love it. Well,
Love the choice. Rest in peace.
it's original, and I like that. That's cool. That's a nifty one. Yeah. I mean, for me, we've talked about on the podcast before. Like Paul Kariya is my favorite player of all time, but
Former BCHL player, Penticton Panther, Paul Kariya.
indeed, and probably greatest NCAA player of all time as well.
His stats were
Uh,
stupid.
it's mind-boggling to say the least, and like you look at them and you're just kind of like, how did this work? Like, how is that possible? But yeah, I think my first ever was either Sakic or Linden. I can't go back. It's hard to tell. I mean, my uncle was just a massive Trevor Linden fan, and then with like me becoming a Colorado Avalanche fan, I had a we went to Value Village one day, and my uncle got me, without me even knowing, a Colorado Avalanche hacky sack. And then when I opened a pack of hockey cards, there was a Sakic card in there, and I'm like, "Oh, that's the one from the hockey sack. I like this guy now." And so, yeah, it was either Sakic or Linden, and my uncle was a huge Trevor Linden fan, so it just kind of worked out that way. Yeah, it's one of the two. Couldn't tell you who, but if I had to say favorite player of all time, it's still Korea. But yeah, I guess we have one last question on this list. One more. Last but certainly not least, for fantasy hockey, I want one sleeper pick from each of you guys. Aiden, we'll start with you.
Yeah, I did kind of sleepers on a previous episode, and I went down the route of like deep league sleepers. I'm gonna go with a not deep league sleeper just to switch it up a little bit and not say a name that I said on the other one. I'm gonna go Ottawa Senators forward Josh Norris. 8 games last year. That's all he got in. He took off the non-contact jersey at practice, apparently. So there's a path to him being ready for the season opener. He hasn't played a preseason game yet, but you got to be hopeful. The year before last, the guy had 35 goals in 66 games, which is over an 82 game season, a 43 goal pace. And I think because of the injury, you're not going to see guys really take him very high. And I think the guy for sure, without a doubt, has 40 goal upside in a full season. Like 40, 40, 80 is not out of the question for him. And with that Ottawa Senators team getting better and better, and that goal scoring Alex DeBrincat not there anymore, I think he could really fill the net.
I like it. You got one for me, Lucas?
I'll let you go first, James.
Okay. All right. Well, I've got one for sure. It's not necessarily a deep league or a shallow league one. It's kind of somewhere in the middle, but mine is Riley Smith. This guy is slotting on with the Pittsburgh Penguins. He will either be playing on Crosby or Malkin's wing. Either would be incredible. The guy's just a workhorse. He's like just annoying for teams to play against, from what I can tell. And this guy could just score 30, 40 goals, chip in on all of the extra little categories if it's one of those kinds of leagues with hits, shots, everything. he's a complete package of a winger and one you really want and one that Vegas is going to miss. But I mean, if you want an idea of production, it could be like playing with Crosby. It could be a Chris Kunitz at his peak type deal. I think Riley Smith is probably faster. And then if he's playing with Malkin, like think back to like James Neal putting up crazy numbers playing with Malkin. Like it could be something like that. He could also put up 25 and 25, put up a 50-point season, which is respectable and expected already, but it could be a hell of a lot more. And I'd love to see what happens. I actually, when it came up to me in my draft, I took Brian Rust over him, and I think I made a terrible choice.
Okay, Lucas, what do you got?
So I had a guy in mind last week that he's slipped out of my mind now, but there's still a few others that I have in mind, and that I'm keeping sort of in my back pocket. I'm in a league with a 12-man league, and it's not a keeper league, so it's a fresh start every year. But we put money into it. It gets pretty serious. And one of the guys I picked up in the second half of the season last year that I really liked, and I ended up dropping later on because it got really to the nitty gritty, and I needed to make some changes. But I really liked him when I picked him up, and I thought with his new team he can do some damage, and that's Eli Tolvanen. I think on the wing there in Seattle when he got traded from the Predators, he's always been a highly touted guy who had the skill, but he wasn't really getting the opportunities, it seemed, in the Predators organization. He moves over to the Kraken halfway through the year. He gets 27 points in 48 games. Not numbers that jump out entirely, but he really did slot well there in that deep forward core on the wing, and he looked really good on the power play at times. So I'm really excited to see what he could potentially do with a full season with the Kraken. I think there should be more opportunity for him this year to further grow. I mean, you forget the guy's only 24. I feel like he's been around forever, and I don't know. It's just because his first year was like when he was like 19 and didn't play a whole lot. But I could see him getting a 30-goal season, and with our 12-man league, it does get to that point in the last few rounds where you're picking guys for their upside as opposed to like what you know them for. And he's a guy I would definitely take the upside on.
Sweet, real solid pick. Love to hear it, honestly. Yeah, I think people very audibly said good pick during my draft when he was taken. So yeah.
I picked him up on waivers halfway
Ooh.
through the season, and yeah, it worked out. So he's someone in front of my mind. Another guy I thought about too was Jakub Vrana. I just thought he's had a tumultuous last few years with Detroit, and before that with Washington, and sort of up and down through the players' assistance program. But once he did line up in with the Blues at the tail end of last year, I thought he looked really good.
Totally agree, man. I think he's gonna go off.
I think Verana was one of the ones I had on the other episode too. Yeah, like that's a sneaky good one.
I didn't know if it was like because like everyone, I feel like a lot of people have talked about him being underrated for years, and I was like, I don't know if I'm like being a dead horse with that, but it's just because he's just had some really unlucky circumstances.
Yeah, no, I think in St. Louis, I think the sky's the limit there. I think he could pot 30 pretty
He had
quietly.
10 and 20, like
Yeah.
with the Blues at the end of the season.
Yeah, he's always shown flashes of that. Like it's more than possible.
Well, I think that's all we got for now. Lucas, I just want to thank you so much for hopping on with us. It's been a while. Been a while since we all sat down and shot of the round. So I gotta say I really enjoyed this, and from everything I got, thank you so much for coming on with us.
No, thank you. Thank you. The pleasure's all mine. Great to talk to you guys. Felt like we were sitting in the radio room again, just sort of talking and chatting it up. So pleasure to be on, and really happy to see both you guys doing well.
Aiden, you got anything else?
No, just thanks for coming, Lucas. This was a ton of fun, and yeah, this was awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, we'll have to catch up again maybe towards the end of the BCHL season, and sort of catch up on things, talk about some playoff situations in the NHL or whatever. We'll do this again. I think we have to.
100%. Well, I think that's everything for now. I just want to thank everyone who was listening for tuning in, and without further ado, let's roll that outro. Thanks, guys.